More people die in the US of too much food than of too little. This is said by John Galbraith, an American economist. Sugary drinks are everywhere you go. Supermarkets, gas stations, you can't escape them. And the amount of sugar that is in them continues to rise. The prevalence of obesity was around 40% among young adults aged 20 to 39. Let that sink in for a second. Today, I'm going to attempt to persuade you on why a simple tax on sugary drinks would not only help to cut down on obesity rates, but also bring in much needed revenue. You see, I love a soda or coffee as much as the next person, but they are something that are not a necessity. As a society, we have grown used to obtaining our wants more than our needs, and it's something that needs to change. I've seen both the psychological and physical effects of obesity, and it's something that I know that nobody wants to go through or should have to go through. The sources for today's speech come from the CDC, OAC, a study titled The Health Consequences of Obesity, the World Cancer Research Fund, the Journal of the American Medical Association, and the Office of Comptroller in Philadelphia. We have now covered the necessary information about what the speech is going to be about today, and we can begin to look at the root of the problem. Obesity is a problem that affects almost half of our country. Some of you may be wondering, what is obesity? What classifies someone as obese? Well, according to the OAC, obesity is diagnosed by a healthcare provider and is classified as having a body mass index, or BMI, of 30 or greater. Some of you may be wondering also what the BMI is. The BMI is a chart that categorizes people's weight into 5 categories: underweight, healthy, overweight, obese, and extremely obese. It has heights on one side and then weights on top. For example, someone that's 5'5" and 130 pounds, they would be right in this healthy weight. For me, at my worst, I was 6 foot, they have it at 5'12" on here, and 220 pounds. So I would be right on this obese, overweight section. Obesity is something that has reached almost every corner of the world and it affects not only adults, but also children. As I said, temptation is everywhere, and a child's will is something that is not very strong. A 2003 study titled The Health Consequences of Obesity found that it's well established that childhood obesity has adverse effects on the cardiovascular system, which are similar to those found in adults. There are many other consequences that come from obesity, and some of those include diabetes, stroke, and heart disease. There's also another effect that isn't talked about as much, and that is quality of life. Things like simply going for a walk become difficult, and self-esteem and self-confidence begin to dwindle. Obesity, though, is not something that is unsolvable, and with the help of a simple tax on sugary drinks, I do believe it'll begin to start the solution. If sugary drinks were to be taxed, it would not only decrease consumption, but it would bring in lots of revenue. Both these results are very beneficial to us right now. Revenue could be put into things like public health systems or wherever it may be needed, and the tax would sway people's decisions on when they go to buy their drinks. The World Cancer Research Fund journal wrote on an example tax in 2018. It would be to tax 5 cents per gram of sugar. Now, these kind of tax would only affect the people's wants for sugar and the manufacturers of drinks. Now, considering that only really Pepsi and Coke produce drinks these days, and they own pretty much every other company, it's not really affecting them as much as it's going to affect the people that work for them. So, part of the revenue could go to things like work programs that could help people to get back on their feet and find new jobs, and the rest of the revenue could go to the public health systems or things like a pandemic. It's already been implemented in some US cities and other countries across the world, but if it does not seem like this tax is plausible, let me show you what is already done for some of these places. This tax has brought in huge sums of money and has cut consumption where it's in place. Without a tax or some kind of other program, obesity will continue to soar and will be a huge problem for our future generations. And in economics terms, it'll be a huge opportunity loss. This tax was put into place in Philadelphia. The tax, 1.5 cents per ounce, took effect January 1st, 2017. The Journal of the American Medical Association in 2018 found that as a result of this tax, the consumption of sugary drinks has dropped 38% in Philadelphia. According to data taken from July 1st, 2017 to December 31st, 2019, by the Office of Comptroller in Philadelphia. This tax has brought in $226.8 million. Imagine how much more revenue and the cut on the consumption of sugary drinks there could be if it was implemented in every major U.S. city. So to sum things up, across the world, obesity is a problem, but with a simple tax on sugary drinks, we can begin to start the solution. Obesity is a problem that without help will continue to plague us for the rest of our lives. A tax on sugary drinks will help to cut down on the consumption of sugar and bring in revenue. This tax has already been proven to be effective in places like Philadelphia, and almost certainly will be effective anywhere it's implemented. The American people not only need this revenue for our public health systems, but they also need it for their health. I do believe that with this tax, we can begin to drastically change the public health systems and improve our longevity.